I am noticing that a couple of people have joined a Teams meeting instead of our Zoom meeting. So I'm going to have to go back and double check the calendar invite.
It had both in the email.
Darn it. Thankfully, I get a notification. Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, I'd be happy to just drop that message you sent me into the Teams messages if that happens again, because I can also see it. If that'd be helpful.
That'd be great, Jenny. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay, good. And I was going to say, maybe I can just join that so that I can keep an eye on it. Of course, now that makes it difficult. Okay, well, thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that. I will go ahead, Cornelia, and get our recording started so that you can officially start the meeting.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December meeting of the Kansas Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. My name is Cornelia Stevens. I'm the Executive Director of Top Early Learning Center and have the privilege of serving as the chair of the panel. For this month, we would like to thank our panel members for actually dedicating their time to be able to serve our children and families. It is a remote meeting today, so anybody who is watching virtually, we'd ask so that they actually are engaged and aware of who's talking. We ask the panel members to please raise your hands. You can either do it with the raise hand feature and or by just raising your hand or whatnot so that we know that you are interested in speaking so nobody gets missed. If you are looking for the materials of today's meeting, you can find them on the Children's Cabinet website at kschildrenscabinet.org. Panel members, also identify your name, please, when you begin to speak, so we have record of that as well. For our agenda, first we are going to approve the December agenda. We're going to approve the November meeting minutes. We do not have anybody today to speak for the Kansas Open Forum, but I will give guidance to that just in case we have anybody that would like to present any information to the panel. We'll have an update on the All In for Kansas strategic plan, an update from the Office of Rural Prosperity, an update on the Kansas Child and Family Wellbeing Pathway, and then reports from our work groups. We'll also give opportunities for panel members to share bright spots. So start thinking about anything wonderful that is happening within your organization, your community, or statewide that you think would be of interest to everyone. And then we will adjourn, and work groups will have the option to follow up and meet after the meeting. Lindsay will leave the work group, the room breakout rooms open if we have anybody that wants to meet. Some groups are not going to be meeting today because we're going to begin our vacation, or Christmas break or whatnot, a holiday break. And so the breakout rooms will be available for you should you want to meet. So the first action item is going to be to approve the December agenda. So do I have any motion? A motion to approve the December agenda as presented.
This is Natalie McLean. I'll make a motion to approve the December agenda.
Perfect. I almost got you, Natalie. And may I have a second?
This is Brenda Bandy. I second Natalie's motion.
And all those in favor, a thumbs up. Any opposed, same sign. The November minutes were sent out with the agenda. If there are no revisions to the November minutes, may I have a motion to approve the November minutes as presented?
This is Kathy Gray. I make a motion to approve the November minutes.
May I have a second?
This is Bronwyn Fees. I'll second that motion.
Perfect. All those in favor, thumbs up. Any opposed, same sign. So for the Kansas Open Forum, we provide opportunities for anyone in Kansas that wants to share information to the panel, with the panel, to either submit written comments and or attend our meeting to share verbal comments. It could be anything that you want to share regarding the children and families of Kansas. And so we really encourage people across the state to come and share information. We love hearing from people, maybe new ideas, new initiatives, thoughts that you have about the early childhood system, anything that may be impacting your family that you think might be of interest to us. And so if in fact you have comments that you would like to share, we ask you to submit the Kansas Open Forum comment form, which is also on the Kansas Children's Cabinet website, by 5 p.m. the day following before each meeting, so that way we know that we have someone that is interested in coming to speak. So again, we do encourage you to come and share information. Again, you can do that either verbally and or submit written comments, and we will certainly share the information that you've presented with the panel members. For our first presentation today, we have Megan Kluth, who is going to give an update in the All In for Kansas strategic plan.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So I have a few updates to share, both about the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan, as well as the preschool development grant, which is the new 3-year grant we have in the state. That grant is really to help implement several parts of the strategic plan. So that's why they're grouped together. So the strategic plan updates, obviously it's came out earlier this year, so still fairly early in the process, but the things that we're really going to focus on in 2025 are co-creating indicators of success with families, and to be fully transparent, we're still figuring out what that means, and would welcome input from you all of like how do we go about that and make sure that we're being inclusive and have broad representation from families. But we're looking at questions like, how do families define quality? At the end of the implementation of the strategic plan, how do we know that we have successfully made a difference for families and professionals and communities? So we want to make sure that we are taking the time to have those conversations. So we're still figuring out what that looks like logistically, but there will be more to come and more opportunities that we can share with you to help promote. We're also looking at how do we make sure we're continuously sharing progress across the systems. And I know I've already connected about setting up a meeting in early 2025 with Heather and the systems progress communication team. I think this is absolutely an opportunity to collaborate with that work group. We know there is a whole lot going on in the system, and we're missing opportunities if we're not making sure to share that, so people continue to feel connected to the work, like they see themselves in the strategic plan, and that they know what partners are doing across the system, because the work is so broad. And so again, figuring out how we're going to go about that is really the priority in early 2025, but we're looking forward to working with the systems progress communication team and really any of you of how do we make sure we're not kind of sharing updates in an echo chamber. We want to make sure we're sharing them across the system, as well as with people in communities, so that people know what resources are available to them and where they're able to plug in and be engaged with the system. So we know there's work to be done there. Next slide. So those are the primary strategic plan communication updates. I'm going to share now preschool development grant updates. So as a reminder, this is Kansas's 4th PDG award. It's a 3-year grant. So we are in the first quarter of year 1 currently. There are 29 different initiatives. So there's a lot in the grant. So I'm going to come every couple months and kind of say, here's what we're focusing on for the next 3, 6, 9 months, just so you can kind of follow along and we can see where there's opportunities for the panel to engage with the work more. And again, many of these, actually all of these are reflected one way or the other in the strategic plan. So that's why it's listed under that umbrella. So some of the things that our partners will be working on in 2025 we're really excited. Thrive Allen County will be doing some health insurance support for childcare professionals, and they did a kickoff webinar yesterday. On January 1st, they're going to open applications for health insurance reimbursement for childcare professionals in Kansas. So and I will share the actual application form so that Lindsay can get that out to the group. We're going to start promoting that today, actually. So basically that means eligible people are must be Kansas residents, must be educators or childcare providers in a licensed care setting in Kansas. That can be home-based or center-based, and must work full or part-time in that role. So, and they'll be eligible to get some reimbursement for healthcare coverage. It can be for their family, it can be for their own policy. I'll share the details of what that looks like and how people can apply. They're also, Thrive Allen County is also offering navigation support. They have navigators throughout the state that can help childcare professionals who are interested in learning more about plans through the marketplace. And they have online and in-person and phone support available to help people who are interested if they are not currently getting coverage and seeing if that's the right option for them. So we are very excited for that. That is coming quickly, and would greatly appreciate your help in promoting that, because we're imagining those are going to be pretty popular resources. We're hoping so. We also have several partners. I know some are on this call. We have CAME, the Association of Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health, KITS, which is the Kansas In-Service Training System, a partner called Mindful Minis, which is a mental health informed childcare in the Wichita area, and then LEND, which is a group that supports, does trainings around supporting children with autism and other neurodevelopmental disabilities. And so we're really trying to increase access across the early childhood workforce to make sure that people feel equipped to support young kids and their families who have different care needs, as well as like encouraging collaboration between different providers. So for example, our partner at KITS will be developing an online training to encourage more collaboration between early intervention, Part C providers, and childcare providers. We know that that is not always happening, and that can certainly strengthen how a family experiences both of those services. So there's a pretty broad variety of trainings going out there with the intent of really increasing access to resources and education around supporting the broad needs of families. We'll also be hosting 2 regional care conferences. This is a new thing that's been being funded through PDG for the first time. These are going to be we're going to, over 3 years, cover each region of the state. Right now, we are tentatively planning for Northwest and Southwest Kansas in probably late spring, but it's an opportunity to bring families, providers across the early childhood workforce, kind of anybody with an interest in early childhood together into one physical space to share resources. We're going to really focus on the importance of mental health and what that means to take care of the mental health of young kids, as well as their whole families and the people who are supporting them. So more to come on that. We'll certainly would love to see any panel members who are in those regions attend and help promote as well. We're also going to be supporting the CAPE portal, which is the workforce registry. We'll be launching very soon. And then we will be doing a series of gap analyses to complement the All In for Kansas Kids Needs Assessment work that was done this year. And there will be 3 gap analyses. The first one that we're planning to do is really focused on rural care needs. We certainly know that the care needs in rural communities for families are different than those in urban or more densely populated areas, but we want to drill down to what does that mean, and what does that mean to different parts of the state, and what are different potential ways to address any gaps and without kind of assuming that there's one blanket approach. So the other gap analyses that we will be doing are family child care as well as early childhood mental health. So very excited to dig into some more research on that. Next slide, please. Okay, a few more things. And I know this is a lot of information. I'm going fast. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will be coming back. So don't feel like you need to know all of these things. We're excited to roll out what we're calling referral system consulting services. So we'll have hours available for communities or organizations that are trying to figure out, I think we all experience in the system like, oh, if only those 2 entities could talk to each other, if only I could follow that family or those providers and kind of know what happens. And so this is a service to help people think through what that means. I think referral system consulting sounds pretty fancy, but essentially it's like, how do we help people connect the dots with each other and also kind of close the loop on when they're communicating across a couple different groups to know what the end result of that is. So that'll be being rolled out here shortly. KDHE is hosting a series of what they're calling childcare regional roundtable events. They hosted their first one in November in Abilene, and their next one will be in January in Topeka, and then Wichita in March. And then we will do the remaining. We'll do all 6 regions by the fall. So I can also share the flyers for the Topeka and Wichita events. It's really an opportunity to bring together kind of anybody interested in childcare in a community, again, to understand like what are the regional differences. We hear all the time that there's a childcare crisis, and while that is often, there's very much truth to that, like that might look very different in one community than the other community. And so this is an opportunity to understand like what are the needs in the local community, as well as what's working well and what is not working well, specific to childcare licensing, but also I think KDHE has done a great job of saying we want to take back anything that's really like a system-wide challenge to other organizations that may be able to play a role in helping close some of those gaps. We'll be launching a cohort of the Future Fellows. If you're not familiar with this, this is a group that has 3 cohorts have happened in Kansas to date, and it's really a bringing together a group of people for several months to focus on what does building a better future for Kansas and Kansas families look like. And so this cohort is going to be focused specifically on people who work in early childhood and in the early childhood system, and continuing with talking about building the future. How do we build the futures that we want to be part of, and also just working on things like innovation skill building. And we're excited to launch that probably like spring 2025. We'll have some more information. I imagine there may be some people on the panel that might be interested in participating, or at least I would hope so. So we will certainly keep you posted about that. And then lastly, and this is not lastly, but I didn't think you would want to hear 29 updates every time I come. So the last one I'm going to share for now is Childcare Aware has developed a really amazing model called Baby Steps, which is provides financial incentives for childcare providers to accept infants and their care, infants and toddlers. And so they will be expanding on that model, which has been going very well for over a year now. In high-need counties. So Wyandotte and quite a few very, very rural counties where there are significant deserts for infant toddler slots. So we hope to see more infants being served through that program soon. Okay. So there are a lot of opportunities to collaborate, and I think we have some in mind, and we also want to hear from you, like if you're seeing opportunities to plug in, like I want to know that. So I think there's a few opportunities here. One, if any on these lists or any of the updates that I bring every few months, like if you're like, oh, I really want to know more about that initiative, please let me or Lindsay know, and we're happy to connect and bring people in so that you can hear more about them, and if it makes sense, potentially collaborate. Help us promote these opportunities. I think there are going to be a lot of them starting after the first of the year. So events, training, the health insurance resources, we really, a lot is going to be dependent on getting the word out across the state and making sure we're reaching as many people as possible, so people are really aware of what's available to them. And then staying connected with the strategic plan updates. And again, I'll be coming back every couple months to share about that and PDG. But if you see places, like I said, to plug in, please, we need as many brains in this work as we can get. And I think particularly when it comes to promoting or sharing progress on the strategic plan, making sure that the plan is, people feel like represented in it, and that they can see their work, and that they can see the progress that's happening and it's having the impact we want it to have. So there is no such thing as too many brains in those conversations. Are there any questions on any of those items?
Megan,
Yeah.
this is
Yes.
Kelly France Langford. I just had a question. I appreciate your comment and willingness to collaborate. If how does that work if we have, so for example, if our Part C infant toddler services programs wanted to partner together on some mental health work or something along those lines, will there be like sub-grantee funding, or how would that conversation begin, or did it begin and I just missed it?
No, you did not miss it. No, there will not be sub-grantee funding. It's a really good question. And I think, to be honest, we're going to kind of need to follow along as we hear interest from people. I think we know like mental health collaboration and training is a really big need. And so we are relying on our partners. And I know Marie with CAIM is in this group, so she might have some thoughts on this as well. But we're, I think, going to be pretty reliant on kind of following where there's energy around this, where there are willing partners. And so I would say feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to facilitate connections with the partners. Everybody's kind of figuring out like who they're going to work with and where they're going to promote trainings and opportunities over the next really year. Again, it's a 3-year grant. So we've got, I think we're using year 1, which runs through September, to just get going, and then we'll have time to figure out what years 2 and 3 are. So that's just a note of like, if something doesn't happen in 2025, that certainly doesn't mean it's off the table. But yeah, I think we want to know like where there's interest, and I can help facilitate that connection. And I think some of this is we need to know how big the interest and the demand for some of these things is, so that we can like right size effort for the rest of the grant. So I know that's not like a super easy answer, but we are kind of building the plane as we fly it, so to speak, with some of this, because we know it's a really big need, but we also want to be, we want to go where it makes sense and people feel like they're in a good place to be partnering. So I would welcome that conversation, Kelly.
Thank you, Megan.
Bronwyn, I saw your hand go up.
Good morning. Thank you for the update. I just, when you were asking about collaborative partners, I was curious to know, particularly about the community roundtables.
Mhm.
If you've reached out to someone in K-State Research and Extension, the extension agency, they know their communities very well. I think could facilitate the work here in promoting and supporting the
That's a great idea.
roundtables.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that is a great idea.
KSRE, as well as the K-State 105 initiative.
Okay.
That office, statewide initiative located at K-State, but statewide initiative. So that would be another partner to reach out to, and glad to help make those connections if you.
Thank you. I appreciate the recommendation.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Megan, one of the priorities or strategies that we've been working on for a couple of years now is trying to figure out how we can do more to provide health insurance to childcare professionals. So seeing that on the bullet, one of your bullets here is quite intriguing. So are you stating that there will be, like, you actually have plans where we can connect people where they can actually get insurance at like a group discount, or is this, can you expand a little bit more on what that
Sure.
is?
Absolutely. So they would pick their own plan. So it's not like helping people get on a group plan. That's a good distinction. So there's 2 resources. One is, and this is all through Thrive Allen County. They actually have a statewide navigator program. And so there are like people can get support in figuring out if their focus is marketplace insurance, but if coverage through marketplace is appropriate for them. So they can do consults on Zoom, by phone, in person if they're near Allen County, and then they have care navigators that speak English and Spanish, so they can actually like go through and like help people look at different plans and figure out what makes sense for them, and like actually go through the application process. So those resources are completely, or like the cost of that is covered. That's available for childcare providers across Kansas. There's also a reimbursement program, and so to apply, somebody, like I said, needs to be a Kansas resident and work in a licensed facility as a based as like an educator or a primary care provider, they don't necessarily have to have coverage, so they could like go through that navigator process and get coverage, and then have that a portion of that, like $300 a month, reimbursed. Or if they are already on if they're on their own plan, or if they're on a family plan, like it will cover that person. But again, it's $300 to go. It's $300 back in their pocket. So it's a good question. It's not going so far as like looking at group insurance, but we're really looking at this from an evaluation perspective on is this an approach to help with retention in the workforce? And Thrive Allen County actually developed this model a few years ago through previous PDG funding, and they're now scaling it. There will be a preference given to family child care providers and providers who make less than $45,000 a year. That being said, we're telling people like, if you do not fall into the like preferred category, please apply. My guess, I could be wrong, is that these are going to go fast, just because we know it's such a big need. But again, we need, like, I think as much as we anecdotally know it's a need, it's also really helpful for us to gather data through this process and say, hey, we are not able to, like, I would love to say we had money to support every single request. I think likely it's going to go pretty fast. Just which I think is a reflection on the need for the program. So it's a long way of saying like no to your question, but I think we're trying to gather as much information around like health insurance and strategies that maybe are appropriate for the state to look at more broadly.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And I know, I mean, again, I know like there are people in this group that have been doing a lot of this kind of work for a long time. So this is really, I mean, while we have very specific initiatives planned with this grant, the whole point of the grant is like systems building work. And so this is, I think we're always open to the conversation, but we're especially open to these conversations right now of, you know, what are the things that you're thinking about? Like, you know, group health insurance, how do we promote more mental health supports, things like that. Because we both want to like implement work through this grant that helps address that, but we really want to put some data around it with our evaluation too. So I just appreciate the questions and the things people are thinking about. And again, like you all have been doing this work for a long time. And so we want to connect dots as much as possible to maximize our impact.
So yes, thank you. Any other questions for Megan? Megan, thank you very much for the update. It's I know you could have gone on for another hour in terms of just all the things that have happened
I'll be
so
back.
far. So
I'll be back. No, I appreciate the time. Thank you all. Lindsay dropped my email in the chat, so reach out anytime if you think of things, and hope you have a great meeting and happy holidays.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Tricia and Carrie. They're going to be sharing an update of the Office of Rural Prosperity.
Good morning, everyone. We also have with us Sarah Bloom from the Quality Places Division, Kansas Department of Commerce. So I'm Tricia Purden. I'm the director of the Office of Rural Prosperity. I'm really excited to talk with you guys. You guys wanted to hear more about what our office and in general Kansas Department of Commerce was working on in regards to childcare. So we just wanted to give you a quick update on all the programs we have that are really touching childcare. So we're going to talk about the rural focus of the stuff we've done in our office. And then I'm going to kick it to Sarah, who's going to talk about the specific programs that communities can use to support childcare in their towns as well. So, and feel free, Sarah or Carrie, jump in here anytime. So really quickly, these are all of the initiatives that we've done really since 2021, when the Office of Rural Prosperity shifted from kind of a listening tour for 2 years into grant making and implementation phase of the work we've been doing in our office since we were created in 2019. So we funded in almost every county now. We're over 75 counties that we funded in, and with the most recent seed awards, I would say we're probably pretty close to checking the box in every single or at least rural county in Kansas, of projects that we funded. So we're really, really excited to see how this moves forward, and we'll have some new initiatives too that we just announced, that will definitely fill in the boxes for these counties that have never received anything. But I just want to make sure you guys had this in context. Like, we've done a lot of really small grants, but mostly these initiatives, the thought is to build this capacity in these rural communities, not just to go after commerce grants, but to really build that capacity for community members and community leaders to be able to go after grants like you just talked about, and other initiatives you've been working on to address these critical needs in these rural communities so they can start to really turn things around or really grow and thrive. So I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the biggest things that we use to make these decisions and to create these new programs has really been created because of the Power Up and Go report. If you haven't taken a look at this, it's really a great report to take a look at for everyone here on this committee. But what it was a partnership with us and the Kansas Sampler Foundation. And Marcy Penner and her team went out to talk to individuals across the state and really focused in on individuals as ages 18 to 40 to really determine what are the barriers for those individuals to stay in rural communities. What are the things that would make them want to stay? What are the things that could be improved to make sure that they stay, not only for their generation, but maybe encourage their children to stay and come back to rural communities as well. So a big piece of this report was all focused on childcare. The lack of quality childcare is really keeping our young people in rural Kansas from taking jobs or even having kids. And so there are reduced incomes in these rural communities. And it's even pushing them away from rural Kansas. So where they might have been able to take a job or, maybe move back to their family homestead, there's no childcare there. So they're bypassing this and moving to a rural or an urban community or even out of the state is what we're finding. But overall, the lack of childcare options, and I'm sure you guys all know this, but it really undermines economic development efforts. And I'll talk a little bit more about this of why I emphasize this point again, because that point still hasn't been translated to every rural community across our state, even today with all the work that your committee and others have been working on childcare. So really summing that up is just addressing that gap in childcare efforts. So because of this really grassroots nature of childcare in a rural community, we really have to focus in on additional resources, and really particularly technical assistance seems to be the common theme that we're hearing from rural communities to really address this childcare access issue in the smaller towns. Okay. So talking about the recommendations from this report is, so what we've been trying to do, and I hope that this translates to all of you as you're working on this initiative, is we really have to improve that coordination of state programs, regulations, advocacy efforts, and providers, which is the entire point I know that you guys are working on. But I was glad to see that this report also shored that up. We also have to elevate teachers and providers. And when we say elevate, it doesn't necessarily mean funding or salary. Obviously, that is also needed, but making sure that the community members know how critically important these people are to the success and growth of our town. Having days to celebrate our child care providers, to celebrate our teachers, to really emphasize how critical this piece is in the success of our towns, cannot be emphasized more. So this is something that we're starting to see across the state, are like, celebrate your childcare provider day and buy them a coffee day and donuts for the teachers day, things like that we've seen have really picked up some steam across our state. And then the last thing that I'm going to go into more detail in is just train and support our local champions. They recommended a system like Skilled KC Technical Institute model to really help them understand and navigate systemic challenges. So moving to the next slide, what we did from this recommendation is implement, I think we missed a slide. Go back to, oh, maybe something got disappeared. Well, what we ended up doing was creating this program called Rural Champions. Can you move forward one more? Huh. a slide is missing. I don't know what happened.
I'll
So
check on that, Trisha. Sorry.
that's okay. It's no big deal. I'll summarize what it is. So, what last year we implemented a program called World Champions, and Carrie Folletti was the one who really led this. She kept this thing moving and really made this thing come from this idea from the Power Up and Go report to a full-fledged program that made a drastic difference in these rural communities. We had 4 childcare champions in the first cohort of this program. And what this program did was fund the salaries part-time of an individual that focused only on a particular challenge that the community addressed and that they picked. So 4 communities that applied for this program addressed childcare as their #1 need. If they could fix this one issue, childcare, their community could start seeing progress in other areas. So the first one was in Clay County, and Grow Clay County was that had an amazing champion that worked on addressing this issue. Their initial thought was that they were going to construct a brand new large facility, would have 50 daycare slots, and it would be part of the elementary school. Ultimately, because of some barriers that they found, and you can learn more about this on our website if you go to kansascommerce.gov/ORP, and you'll find the champions. And all this is in really nice detailed format, so you can read more about it. But they applied, I think, for one of the big accelerator grants, and they didn't receive that. And I think they went after a Patterson fund, and they didn't receive that. So they had to revise and kind of pivot their plan. And so what they ended up doing was meeting with their superintendent, and found out that there were several classrooms in the middle school that weren't being used. And so they were able to use our grant of $25,000 as well as some other grants they were able to pull together through this program, and renovate rooms and turn them into new childcare slots for community members, or for childcare providers for the community. They really determined that childcare was a critical issue. They did a study. Obviously, they were able to use Childcare Aware. But then they saw that in 2021, they lost a local childcare center, and it was solely due to staffing issues. So they lost 32 slots. Then a church closed later that year, eliminating another 20 slots. So they lost over 50 spots in just 1 year. And so this was something critical the whole community saw was a need. They put together a huge resource team, and that's the big piece of why World Champions has been successful. We surround each one of these champions with a whole team of resource providers. So they come up with their own resource providers, but then we bring together, we brought together partners from like the Children's Cabinet, and communities have done really good childcare centers, or something that follows along the template they've decided they're going to follow, and pair them with those mentors so that they know they have kind of a framework that they can follow. One more slide. Sorry. There we go. So we kind of talked about the unexpected challenges. And this is where I was talking about before. The public affairs officials in that town, even though they had lost 50 slots for childcare, they had no idea that this was such a critical impact on families and businesses and the growth of their community. They were able to go in front of their county officials, their city officials, and really emphasize the need and why this was so critically important. And they were able to get that leadership support then on board, which helped move this forward. And that's how the superintendent came to participate in their project. So then they also heard from the in-home providers that they were concerned that if they opened another competitor that was a center versus an in-home center, that would impact them. And after, again, that education, even our own childcare providers, telling them more about this need and how big the gap was for the number of children that needed coverage, they were able to resolve those concerns and move forward without any negative impact. So ultimately, the Clay County champion ended up building or renovating 2 classrooms to be at 12 to 14 slots. The in-home providers thought that maybe, they were trying to create a substitute pool for these in-home providers, and they weren't really in favor of that, surprisingly. But with the school district opening that center, it did allow for that drop-in, substitute pool type center. And so one of the classrooms allowed for that flexibility. And so that was able to move forward because of the way that they framed this new system. Basically, in addition, the last big success that they had was educating the public about the shortage of childcare and the shortage of providers that took DCF payments. And all of that education they had done, they were able to get 2 existing providers now eligible to accept those payments with this technical assistance and support of the leadership across the county. So that was a really big win for them as well. So Susie Swanson was the champion, and you can read her quote here, which I think was really good. Just really keeping the idea of thinking outside the box around childcare in rural communities might be the best way to go about this. And it's not one size fits all, but everyone can kind of lean on each other and learn what others are doing. The next community is.
I found it. Just want to make sure you can get their faces up on the screen, and I'll put it back in the slide deck. Sorry to interrupt, but I went back and was able to grab it, so didn't want to miss this.
No, I did. I was like, I don't know. I see our champion. So Susie Swanson was Grow Clay County, and then I think it must have an animation on here for the next one. So Rebecca Needlin is Oberlin, and she's with USD 294. She was our world champion. And then the third was Dahlia Boys from Dodge City and Ford County. And then our last one, I think she didn't get a headshot, so we just had her name, Amy Wallace in Kingman County. So these are our 4 world champions. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward to Oberlin's project. And each one of these had a little bit different projects than each other community. So the cool part of this idea is that as they were moving along in each one of these projects, they live documented their progress. So if you were a neighboring community to Oberlin, for example, you could follow Oberlin's Champions Facebook page and follow along with, okay, we've just figured out that this type of building isn't going to work because it's not going to meet, KDHE requirements or fire marshal, requirements. Or, hey, we just hit this barrier. Here's the barrier we had. And then it keeps those communities who are following along from having those exact barriers too, and those same roadblocks. So that was the whole thought of champions. They don't have to wait till the end to get a report. They can follow along live as they move forward. So Oberlin, what they needed to do was they were going to build a new childcare center. They critically needed a new childcare center. They had a lot of slots that they were needed to be filled. Their big barrier, though, was just finding those available contractors for new construction. Seemed to just be overwhelming. They were not able to ever find anyone that could do new construction that were willing to take on that project. And so what they ended up doing was shifting to renovating an existing location in their community instead. The school was able to buy that building, and then they were able to find local contractors that could do the renovation, that had the skills to do that part of the project. They were able to partner. They were one of the lucky few that are in the Dangy Hansen Foundation territory. They went through a strategic doing with them, and they really identified that childcare was their big need after they saw how many childcare slots they needed to be filled. So again, they pulled a lot of partners together. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you're not on this list, maybe this it's an opportunity to reach out to us, and we can make sure we include you on the resource partner list for the new champions that we have going. Go ahead and go. So the challenges I've said before, finding contractors for new construction. They also found that, zoning and building codes to find a suitable new option, that took a lot of time for them. So making sure that a certain type of building was in the right location and it was zoned correctly, so they didn't have to go through a rezoning process, was a big piece of their site selection. And then again, going back to like what happened in the previous community, just the community rumors and negativity. They had to pretty much constantly get in front of community members to provide information and education about why childcare was so critical and what they were trying to do to address that. So theirs was just slightly different because it was coming from the community members versus the leaders, and so they really had to show why that was the selected project and why that was a critical thing to renovate an existing building instead of construct a new one. Her big takeaway, though, is that they did get a building done. They are moving forward, but each bump helped them grow, which I thought was really neat. Okay. Dodge City was a really unique one, and they are still working on this one because theirs was a doozy. Their thought was, with all of their large facilities, they needed to open a childcare center that had at least 300 childcare seats available of varying times of being open. So first and second shifts, overnight shifts. So this was the project that they were trying to figure out. Ultimately, though, they're still moving forward with the design and the plan for that big facility, but they had such an urgent need that what they ended up doing is building capacity of licensed home facilities instead. And so they were able to open up several new in-home childcare facilities and then provide additional training. And so they have a nice comprehensive system to support their in-home childcare providers. But I mean, the reason why everyone probably knows this in Dodge City with the growth that they've seen with beef packing plants, the new Hillmar Dairy, there's just so many new projects happening in that area and so much growth happening in those communities in that region. They were able to part with a lot of people. And I say that I think Dodge City really has set the standard for how to address some of these huge challenges when you have rapid growth in a rural area. Childcare and housing, I would point people to Dodge City. They've done a really good job. Go ahead and go forward. Their big challenge, again, was the cost of construction. They are so far out there, and so getting a contractor to come out there that wasn't already working on a beef processing facility or Hillmar because of the work that was already happening, they could not get a contractor to build a new facility at the same time because they were already booked to do all of the other projects that were going on in that community. And so the increased cost of bringing someone that wasn't from that area in was just so high. And so they ended up going and doing a large fundraising campaign, which they're still working on, to be able to raise the funds to be able to create such a large facility. So that's why they pivoted to in-home childcare providers. A language barrier was also a major unexpected challenge, which they were able to get through because their world champion is fluent Spanish speaker. But really be able to provide in-home providers technical assistance in other languages through their licensure process, and making sure that their facilities were up to the standards that needed to be in order to offer childcare. That was a key piece that addressed that really helped that community. And then the Dodge City Champion takeaway really was they learned that providing regular technical assistance training seminars and at different times, at different locations, in different languages, that really helped open up opportunities for in-home providers to open and really build trust in that community to get more places licensed and open in that region. They brought in KDHE, guest speakers, Childcare Aware came out several times, I think. And then what they ended up doing ultimately was getting their own orientation done with KDHE so that they could be certified to then provide that technical assistance themselves in Dodge City, so that more childcare providers could continue and they didn't have to wait for state officials to come out and do that, which I thought was really cool. And Dahlia, like I said before, her as a Spanish-speaking woman, it brought me great joy to help people find childcare for all walks of life, especially Ford County speaking 28 different languages. So there are diverse communities in dire need of childcare. I thought her perspective throughout the childcare or throughout the World Champion Project was pretty amazing. Okay. And then Kingman County, I know I'm taking probably too much time, but this child care champion was trying to do a strategic plan to increase child care capacity. They had several that were open, but maybe weren't at capacity. Information wasn't getting out there on how to connect parents to these child care providers. And so what they ended up doing was doing opening up 2 classrooms and then a center that accommodates up to 46 kids after going through that entire strategic planning process. So they started really at ground zero, started at the strategic plan, and were able to then renovate 2 classrooms and then open a center because of the work that they did. really, this was something that came about pretty organically and grassroots, very rural. They really were hearing from employers, providers, and parents. They made a childcare an actual committee with the school district. They started meeting with all the state agencies. And then they did a full survey across the community too, to really help them figure out what their needs were and what the gaps might be. And so this opened the door to apply for additional grant dollars as well. And they ultimately were able to get a massive childcare grant through the accelerator program to open up several options in that area. So they had several resource partners, but USD 331 was their key project. And I think she mentioned before that she doesn't see how any rural community can do childcare unless they're partnering in some form or fashion with the school district. That was the key pivot point for that community, where they were really kind of struggling and doing lots of planning, but it wasn't until the school district got on board that they were able to really pull things together. Again, like the other community, there's lots of uncertainty with current providers, but being able to show that gap and that need analysis they were able to do with that survey, as well as childcare aware, it really helped them make that argument. They're now trying to move on to the next town over. They're going to see if they can get a center open in Cunningham as the next phase of their project. But they were able to build so much capacity and funding ability that they feel confident that they can continue now, and we don't have to fund them anymore. So I'll go ahead and move forward. So Commerce does have some programs to fund childcare, and some of these organizations that I talked about before did get funded through these. But this is something I think all of you might be able to roll in. And I will say one of the coolest things that I've seen happen at Commerce this year is our new grants guide. It might be something that this committee takes a look at, of a normal standardized template of all the childcare grants that are available over a calendar year. That's been really transformational at Commerce to help us map out when grants are, but helps especially these rural communities that don't have a lot of capacity to be able to put on their calendar and anticipate months in advance when something's coming, so they can build that capacity and build that coalition to help them go after funding. So one of the
Trisha?
programs that, oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Sarah. I'm just going to jump in. It's a great idea, and the K-State Research and Extension is already working on putting together a full child care grant guide for the state. So that is in the works.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So one of the programs that does support childcare at Commerce is the SEED program. That one just closed recently, and we should be making grant announcements very soon on this. It's up to $25,000, and they can do childcare, senior centers, libraries, placemaking, rural food systems like grocery stores. It only requires a 10% match. That's been really key, of having low match amounts for these rural towns. And I'll say one of the shining stars, and this was also one of Sarah's projects as well, was Medicine Lodge. They had a really great seed project that they paired with community service tax credits to open just really an incredible childcare facility in their downtown in a historic building. The next project is the Rural by Choice Champions, which I just talked about. We had 4 champions in 2023. We have 2 that are doing childcare this year, and that's Stafford and Newton. And then we'll have another round of Rural Champions that will open in June of 2025. So if anyone's interested in going after that again, I fully expect we'll have childcare champions in that round as well. Childcare always comes up as one of the high requests. And then HEAL is the last one that I'll talk about, and then I'll kick it over to Sarah. HEAL is a project that people might not think about for childcare, but it allows you to rehab an existing downtown building to get it ready and open for a business. The thought is that we can come in with $100,000 of grant dollars to renovate that building. It does require a 1-to-1 match, but you can pair it with pretty much any other grant to meet that match requirement. It doesn't have to be like from a bank or a bank loan. And what's really cool that we've seen several organizations use HEAL is that they can use it to open a childcare facility in their downtown. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in just the downtown. It can also be along the corridor that goes into the downtown. Pittsburgh's a good example of that. There was an old school building that was just like one block off of the downtown, but right along that major corridor. They were able to convert, they're going to be converting that building into a large childcare center, partnering with several other grant opportunities. But things like that really have opened the doors for childcare facilities in the downtown, which is, the heart of every community. So, okay. Sarah, do you want to talk about Love Kansas, or I can talk about that one?
You're good. Keep going.
Okay. The last thing I want to mention is, if you haven't seen it yet, I think when we always talk about how there's a lack of providers, this is a program that I really hope everyone takes advantage of, is just Love Kansas. We're doing our best to try to recruit people back to our state. It's a love letter from the state of Kansas. And what we're trying to do is have everyone across the state send out letters talking about their love of Kansas to family members and friends that they know might have lived in our state at one point, and we want to recruit them to come back. Open up your childcare facility in the city of Oberlin or Edna or any of our small towns across the state that need childcare. We have been working tirelessly to try to get this program really up and going. We're already seeing a lot of success. Resumes have been sent in, that people that have moved back to our state due to this campaign. But it's a great thing to think about. We know that the wages of childcare providers struggle across the whole country, but knowing that Kansas is one of the most cost-effective states in America, it's a really good argument if we're trying to recruit those providers to move back to our state. We are initially targeting a certain market, and that's what I talked about, like sending those love letters to individuals. We're really targeting those boomerangs. So these are people that you might have graduated high school with or college with, or new down the street that have moved away, or just maybe it's a grandkid or a child of someone. Send them these letters and letting them know, because the reasons why these boomerangs that have moved back to Kansas come at these top 4 areas. So family is obviously one of the reasons people move back. Job opportunities, affordability and housing, and the cost of housing here in Kansas, and then that emotional connection to Kansas, which goes back to Love Kansas. Is very an emotional response. So sending these love letters of our state to individuals across the country is really something that we're thinking could really help bring people back to our state. Okay. So in summary, the last thing I wanted to mention that I think often gets kind of lost in the weeds here is the children that are already in our rural communities. They are kind of a captive audience. And as Marcy said in Power Up and Go report, create the choir and then listen to it. So we're creating the choir. We're raising our own kids in our state. So we need to be creating this group of people that understand the importance of how amazing Kansas is, and then make sure we're listening to these individuals, make sure we're involving our youth in decisions, making sure we're involving our youth in these strategic planning sessions, spreading the good word about the rural communities and highlighting positive things that are happening. Maybe create a community of practice and fellowship for rural influencers. So same thing could be translated to childcare. There are amazing childcare providers doing amazing work in rural communities. Having them talk about what they've done and how they've been able to do this could be a key piece of your initiatives. And then making sure that we're expanding programs that connect kids to their communities. So, from birth to their senior year, we should be connecting these kids to their communities and showing how important their towns are to helping them grow and thrive themselves. So, okay. I think the next slide is all Sarah.
All right. We'll go through it fast. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Bloom. I am the Quality Places Manager at Kansas Commerce, Office of Rural Prosperity and CDBG and Kansas Main Street and Broadband Development. we're all a part of one big umbrella that is the Quality Places Division, and we're all working really hard to make Kansas the best place to live. So with that, I know we're focused on childcare today. I'm also the childcare lead at Commerce, so involved in a lot of different task force and groups, including the Kansas Childcare Go team. Want to give a shout out to Cornelia. I haven't seen you since the task force last year, so lovely to see you. But with community development block grants, we are focusing on helping low to moderate income individuals and families. So that is what this is available for. This slide is not correct for the next year's grant cycle. So ignore all of the numbers down below. But what we are focusing on is the nonprofit childcare. It will not have its own section in this upcoming grant cycle. Childcare will be a part of our community facilities grants. We will have $21 million available for community facilities. We have a goal of awarding 1.5 million to childcare facilities. So those are the numbers that we are going to be working with in 2025. The communities sizes are still correct down below. The communities can receive up to the 650,000 and 800,000 depending on your population. This can be used for construction. It can be used for renovations. It's just not for operations. We also want to stress that this can include things other than centers. If you are doing, for example, an in-home group home, it can absolutely qualify as long as the provider is not living in the home. So this is it's a nonprofit facility, yes, but it is broader than just centers. So keep that in mind. We will be giving priority to those communities identified by the Child Care Aware as a child care desert, and all of that can be found online. The one other thing to note, if you've ever worked with CDBG, you may have heard that it's kind of a difficult process and there might be things that you have to prove that you're LMI and you might have to go through a survey. Throw all of that out the window when it comes to childcare. This is one of those areas in CDBG where you do not have to prove your LMI of 51% prior to applying, and you don't have to do a survey prior to it. If you are working with a nonprofit childcare facility and you are going to use CDBG funds, you are going to apply with the assumption that you're going to serve at least 51% of that low to moderate income population. So you don't have to prove anything up front. Once the facility is opened, we provide you with a form, and as people are registering to use your facility, you will ask them what their income is, what their household size is, and then you'll make sure that you're serving that 51% LMI as you go through it. That goes for the number of kids, not it's based on the number of kids, not the number of families. So if you have a family with 10 kids and they qualify for LMI and your facility is hosting, maybe the capacity is 21, you only need, one or two more kids in that LMI. It is not based on family, it's based on number of children. So something to keep in mind there. It is a little bit more complicated than that, but we don't have a lot of time this morning. But the main contact for childcare facilities and community facilities at Commerce is Jenny Erdley. You can also reach out to me with any questions as far as CDBG goes. Next slide. All right, and then we also have tax credits that are available for childcare facilities. Specifically, if you want to go to the next slide, the Community Service Program tax credits. We call this CSP. We have $4.13 million in tax credits allocated to us annually for any nonprofit across the state that is benefiting their community with some project. So any nonprofit organization can apply and receive up to $200,000 in tax credits for a project benefiting their community. It is a very competitive application process. We receive between 60 to 70 applications every year. We usually are only able to award around 30, strictly because of the amount of tax credits that we have. We have that 4.13, and we're getting upwards of $9 to $10 million in requests every year. But childcare facilities absolutely qualify for these tax credits. And I know Tricia mentioned it several times, it's specifically Medicine Lodge, where they use SEED, they use CSP, they also use CDBG funds. We encourage stacking these programs. And if you need help walking through that process of what you can stack and how to stack in the process, we want to help you with that too. Specifically with the community service tax credits, this is not a grant. These are tools to help nonprofits fundraise for their projects. So in a rural community, which is defined as less than 15,000 in this case, you can get a 70% tax credit. In an urban community, which is greater than 15,000, you can receive a 50% tax credit. If you're receiving $200,000 in tax credits, depending on where you are, rural or urban, you're going to raise upwards of $285,000 to $400,000 in tax credits. And we can go through all the math, but we're not getting into the weeds today. Just know that these are tools to help you secure donations from your donors. Because if a donor comes to you and says, "Hey, I heard about your childcare project. I want to write you a $200 check." You can say, "Wow, great. Thank you so much. But did you know we have these tax credits?" And you can actually double your donation and be out the same amount of money because they're going to get at least 50% or 70% if they're in a rural back in state tax credits, because these tax credits are refundable, they're transferable. This is not a deduction. It's better than a deduction. This is a credit to them that they are going to get back no matter what. Even if they owe $0 to the state, at the end of the year, when they're filing their tax credit or filing their tax returns, they're going to get this money back. Yes, I will absolutely share that contact information for CDBG. So the reason this ties into stacking is because these are a tool to secure donations. Once you have secured these donations, you can then apply for CDBG and you can apply before that too. But if you're using it as a stacking tool, once you've secured all these donations, you can actually use those donations as your 10% match that's required for CDBG. You've already got it secured. Because you already have it secured, you actually get extra points on the CDBG application. So some things to consider. We want to talk to you as early in the process as possible so that we can help you walk through this process and know all of your options ahead of time and set you up for success. So all of this information can be found on our website. Tricia mentioned the grants guide. Both of these programs are listed on the grants guide as well. Please check those out. The CSP or Community Service Program tax credits, though that application will open again on March 1st of 2025. CDBG will open a little bit later, but be watching for that. Stay in contact with us and please use us as a resource. I'm not sure if there's slides afterwards. Yeah, and now if there's any questions for Tricia or I.
We went through a lot really fast, so.
We did.
Okay. Well, you can reach Cornelia. I think you're talking, but I'm not hearing anything.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Okay, there you go. I was just telling Sarah, I was like, Sarah again. And thank you all for this information. It's actually pretty amazing looking at the innovation that people had and what happens when you collaborate and you work together and you think outside the box in trying to solve solutions. And so, a lot of info, but a lot of amazing info to kind of get the brain cells working on new things that we can do to be able to kind of to help this effort. So thank you for that.
Thank you. This was really great.
Next, we are going to have Jenny, who is going to give an update on the Kansas Child and Family Wellbeing Pathway.
Thank you, Cornelia. Hi, everybody. I see some familiar faces, but for those who don't know me, I am Jenny Welch-Buller. I'm a research project manager at the Center for Public Partnerships and Research, and excited to provide an update to you on our Kansas Child and Family Wellbeing Pathway. I wanted to pause really quickly though and just give a quick update on what that is. For some of you may recall a conversation about a year ago. Some of my colleagues came and have been working with folks across the state for the last year or so to try to get a really deep understanding of what child and family well-being means to the people in Kansas and help define that through a set of new domains and indicators. And so I'll talk a little bit about that now before we dive into my ask, which my request, just as a teaser alert, ties in so nicely to what we just heard, because I heard a lot of bright spots, and that is what I'm here to ask for now. So I'm just very, very excited trying to take notes, and we'll circle back to incorporate some of what we heard today into what I'm asking from you all as well. So what is the well-being pathway? It is a strength-based set of county level indicators grouped under some domains. We created these, or they're in process. It's in the process of being developed, and we're getting really close to having it all done and wrapped together, and it will contain these all in a website that will be interactive, an interactive dashboard that visualizes community level indicators of child and family well-being. What's really key, and I wanted to make sure folks understand, is we're really dedicated to taking a strength-based approach to defining well-being for the state of Kansas, and that's just a very important part to this overall process and what we hope to present to folks not too long. So it centers lived experts definitions of well-being. We went around and had focus groups. We've also, and we combined what we learned from folks on the panel, as well as the Family Council, Thriving Families groups. We incorporated all that and are blending it together with public data on all of the indicators that we're gathering so far to, again, help define what it means, how to define child and family well-being. So we've also incorporated the social determinants of health and protective factors framework, and just really eager to share that with you. So some of the domains that are emerging so far, the groupings of all these indicators of well-being, are on the slide you see before you today. So we have developed a couple of different domains: health, environment, financial, community, learning and development, and family and household. And on the next couple of slides, I'll go through and show you some of the indicators that help measure and define well-being within those groupings. And that will come shortly. So one more thing though, before we get into that and my ask, is I wanted to just also share that what we hope to include on this pathway, this dashboard and website, is some practical guidance for folks who come into the website, some practical guidance and examples for how to take action. So what folks will see when looking at the well-being scores for each of these indicators is they'll also then see where your county lies, and that we have 3 different levels, and that's getting started, strengthening, and excelling. And so it's really important that we gather some resources, information on what folks can do next to move and progress on that pathway to well-being. So it'll include a lot of resources and practical examples and guidance from other states, from across the nation, best practices. But what's very, very important to us too is that we include information from Kansas, because we know from what we just heard that there's a lot of exciting things happen, a lot of best practices emerging, innovative practices, and bright spots. So that is why I'm here today. We are once again coming to this group to ask for help in developing this pathway, and a part of that will include Kansas bright spots under each domain and tied to these indicators that I'll talk about next. So Lindsay, I think we could, great. So the first domain that I mentioned is health. And so a couple of the indicators that are emerging as we look, we gather, again, combining all the input from our focus groups, the literature, the research, and we came up with a couple of different indicators under health. And we are now at the phase of gathering data, different public data points that help us measure each of these indicators, again, so that we can look at the county level on how folks are doing. So the first one is access to quality care. That's something we talk about in this group a lot and came up today as well. Preventative screenings and routine checkups, health status, avoidance of high-risk behaviors, And so again, we have colleagues who are busily looking and gathering data to help us understand, well, how would we measure that? And we'll combine that data into each indicator. So what I'd love to do next is, I know some of you may have seen in the email a list of these indicators under each domain. So I'm going to go through each domain and just really invite any ideas that you might have, and hopefully get started on kind of building out our list that we can include on the website under each domain as we're building it. So, and also, of course, I'd love to invite questions. Again, taking in so much information this morning about the what and the why. I'm happy to kind of walk through it. Excited. Hopefully next time I come, I'll be able to show you the website and you'll be able to see some of the work that you put into it. So I'll pause here and just see, first of all, if you have any questions, and also if you have any ideas of example bright spots that we can, from communities you worked with or where you live, that we could include for the health domain. I'll also let you know, teaser alert, that I'm going to create a link, kind of like just a questionnaire survey, so that on a regular basis, I was hoping that this group, as you progress and start to hear more updates about the website, you can then submit ideas and share them with us so that we can include them. One of the points of including bright spots for each of the domains is just to celebrate. I know our friends from the Rural Prosperity Center were talking about how important that is to celebrate. We also want folks to be able to look at examples from other communities of how other folks are working towards well-being, and be able to incorporate that into action plans, for instance. So, or reach out to somebody to learn more. Well, how can I do that in my county or community? So that's another, be thinking when you think about examples, consider it from that frame too. What do I want to share to both celebrate, but also inspire others to think about? Reach out to me. We can put contact information, we can link to the websites, and make it we want to make it very hands-on, practical opportunity to connect across the Kansas. Oh my gosh, I see things in the chat and I realize I might be missing things. Have I missed? Okay, great. I'm just a little behind. What's going on in communities, and when it comes to screenings and education, maybe events? And when I say policies, think big and small. It could be just changing something at the school district level to increase information about health, or hosting an event and trying it out and seeing that it works. Don't be intimidated by the size of bright spots or successes or innovation. Those words can be intimidating sometimes, I know. Okay, pin the health domain, plug that in brain, and we'll move on to the next one and just see if anybody has any ideas for the next one. Because I know I want to make sure I don't ruin your
Jenny,
agenda, Lindsay.
No, you're fine. I actually have a couple people that did just start noting in chat. I know it's kind of hard to speak up and speak out, but just to make sure that and I'm happy to read these out loud, but we don't really meet the same level of accessibility standards if we just comment in chat. So I'll read these out. If you have anything else to add, that'd be great. But if you don't mind coming off mute, I know sometimes it's easier to chat, and I'll keep an eye on that as well. So Natalie shared one example would be efforts to include walkability and bikeability in a community.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Hillary shared safe sleep community baby showers in Miami County and Harvey County. So those are both great examples.
Lindsay, Hillary Kane, and I'll share one other thing. Rose Hill Parents as Teachers program installed a story walk in their community next to elementary school with a grant that they received, and that has been incredible. They've been changing out their book every month and getting a lot of families out there engaging in walking and reading the story.
This is Karen McCrory, Mitchell County Partnership for Children. It's exactly what I was going to share, that we have put in a community book walk at our city park, and the book gets changed out every month, and a page on each sign, so families are encouraged to walk with their kids and read.
This is perfect. I'm very exciting. Thank you. It's exactly what we need.
This is
And-
Brenda Bandy with the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, and I know that there are a lot of community baby showers being held across our state throughout the year. And I just see in the chat that Leavenworth County has mentioned theirs that will be held in August. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm wondering if there is a way of capturing those community baby showers they're usually hosted by local health departments.
Okay.
And if they are part of the Safe Sleep campaign, the Kids Network would be involved with that as well. So I'm just thinking of one place where you can go to capture all of the community baby showers, or at least the majority.
Brenda, I love that idea. And that's part in a way to make sure that people in communities know, who do I call to like learn more? How do I do this here? And so I love how you're connecting the dots. And I'm hoping that this can be one place among many where people can help do that. So thank you. Okay. And it looks like Lisa Schmidt shared that, yep. Oh, I see it now. The baby shower in August. With a 50% increase in expectant moms. That's great. Yeah, sharing as many details as possible is wonderful. And whenever you have a link or a contact person, we can share that as well. Okay. Well, this is exactly what I needed. Thank you. And so the next one ties in pretty well. So what you'll probably start to notice, and what we've been noticing with some of the data, is that there's a little bit of overlap too. That is one of what we heard from Kansans, and what we're seeing in the research is that no one domain or way to measure well-being is isolated. They're all connected. And so we'll probably likely share some of these bright spots and examples across multiple domains to make sure that wherever people are looking to strengthen their community, they can make sure they have all the information and ideas available. So in the community domain, we're talking about accessible supports resources. I know that feels very broad, but we'll have very specific definitions on the website. As well as I should mention this, we'll have all of our methods and connections to what data did we use, so people can understand it deeply, as deeply as they'd like. Connectedness is part of one of our measures of well-being and community. How are communities enhancing or supporting relationships, support systems across the community for everybody? And examples would be, I think some of the examples you've already shared tied into this pretty well, but what kind of cultural events, policies that are promoting connections, such as opening up. I think one example somebody gave recently was a summer food program and trying to increase engagement, and they opened it up, got some help increasing funding to open it up to all families, so that it then became not only a way to provide those who are hungry with more access to food, but a community bonding experience. So that was one example. Okay. New or exciting folks are trying out, or some things that we feel might need to be lifted up in terms of community building and strengthening activities? Okay, I see Sarah Bloom shared the creation of truly accessible playgrounds, parks across the state. And this could also be health. Yes, so true. And you'll see here shortly, we have an environment domain. And so that talks a lot about built environments. Again, just seeing all the way they're woven together is really important. So we'll be sure to tell people that on the website. So Hayes, Colby, and Russell County. Yeah, great, wonderful examples. Well, in the interest of time, and I will again follow up with a very specific way to share more information as it comes to you, and hopefully again this space coming together will be an opportunity each month to revisit those and freshen our ideas as we build out the website. So the next one, Lindsay, is, let's see here, what do I have coming next? Environment. So that ties in perfectly with Sarah's example. Parks, recreation, transportation, libraries, anything that it strengthens the built environment for communities. We were told and have discovered in our research that that really contributes to well-being. Also, the absence of harmful substances, housing and safety, food security and access to safe water, those all emerged in conversation and in the data. And so we have bookmobiles here. I put that because I knew I'd heard about it, but I couldn't remember where. And so again, the specificity is really helpful for when we build out the website. Trails, building trails, and housing projects, all of those things, no matter how big or small, I think we would welcome bright spots. Shout out Hayes again, great bookmobile, fantastic. And if you have, whether it's news, so I'm trying to think too, well, how will people know how to dig deeper? So for things that maybe don't have a website, is there perhaps a newspaper, a link to a newspaper post, whatever it may be, so that we can make sure that people have a little bit more information. We can also do our research too, but if you have, as you're thinking of ideas to share from here moving forward, if you have anything that would be links to more information or pointing people in a direction where they can learn more, that would be really wonderful.
One example I can think of, this is Lindsay O'Ryan in Lawrence, is the expansion of a walking and biking trail over the course of many years with the ultimate goal to make it possible to connect all the way around the city. So it's not quite there yet, but a little bit every year or so has helped to expand that. So one example.
Great. I know we hear a lot of people interested in more and more in the Prairie Spirit Trail going through some of our counties. I don't know if that's anybody that brings people in from other states. So I thought that was very interesting too.
This is Kelly France Langford. The Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library also has a learn and play bus, which is geared toward providing some preschool-like experiences for families in Shawnee County. And in addition, several of the early childhood partners around the community send staff to talk with families, to talk with and provide ideas and activities on the bus as well. So it's a community partnership.
Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, sorry, Jenny. This is Hillary Kane, and I was just going to share that Valley Center Parents as Teachers also has a new bookmobile, so that they've just got up and running. So
Valley Centers.
Parents as
Hillary.
Teachers.
Oh, thank you. Oh, of course. Thank you. And Brenda.
Yes, thanks. This is Brenda Bandy, Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, and we have a program called Breastfeeding Welcome Here, where businesses, any buildings can enroll, and they receive a window cling and table tents to display to the public that breastfeeding is welcome in that establishment. And I know specifically Newton and Harvey County is working really hard to get 30 new businesses enrolled, but this program is statewide, and we can certainly provide you with an update on the newly enrolled. But it's a great, when you talk about environment, creating an environment and a space for public breastfeeding.
Thank you, Brenda. That'd be great. I will follow up. Oh, and I see links. I see all kinds of wonderful links. This is great. This brings me a lot of joy today. Thank you. All right, next, let's do the next domain. Learning and development. Now, I know we have a lot of experts in the room on this, and I have some ideas of what to link to here for sure when it comes to quality and access. But I am excited to hear more about what's going on at the local level. And I think we heard a few examples today. Incredible examples, really inspiring, that I will be following up on watching the recording and grabbing the slides and resources to include from our friends at the Office of Rural Prosperity. So yes, any ideas that at the top of your head or things you thought about when you saw the agenda and learning and development?
This is Lindsay O'Ryan. As I was looking ahead to our meeting this week, I came across an article that was shared with me about Junction City, where they approved to reform childcare ordinances to bring them in line with state regulations. and also eliminated local permit requirements and associated fees to decrease the cost for operational costs for providers. So just another example of different communities, and I'll share that as well. But I was excited to see it and thought it was a good connection for what we were doing today.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay. And that's a great example too. What we, as much as possible, as we can provide folks examples at all these different levels, right? Whether it's something that volunteers got together to do and create, or a policy that sounds like maybe a local level policy change that people came to, how did that happen? You know, that's incredible. Thank you. Great reminder of all the different types of examples we'll be looking for. Well, I know this one feels big, and so also keep in mind too, if there's bright spots or ideas that are that we could just give an introduction to and link to on your websites. Like I know our quality of care, this will be, you know, there's so many people working on this, and so we'll want to make sure that we're connecting to existing resources as well. Okay. Next, I think will be good. And thank you. So family and household is another domain or area in which a lot of indicators emerged. And so protective factors alone are just key to include. And so for those who aren't familiar, we'll definitely follow up and share a little bit more about that with you. But that has to do a lot with the concrete social supports, other indicators that have already been well researched and shown as important when defining well-being and setting conditions for well-being for children and families. Caregiver supports fell under this as well. And some examples might be related to a lot of basic needs. Think of it that way too. So the summer food program example that I mentioned was one that also then overlaps with the community domain. So building community while also addressing some basic needs. Educational events that build in free childcare, just thinking of that holistic approach to how family and households can thrive. Hopefully that will provide some inspiration for examples here. And Amy, thank you for, yes, a shout out for 1-800 Children Resources and Families, 100%. Thank you. We will definitely link to that. And then Sarah Bloom shared the Innovation Center does a great job of getting resources to childcare providers. And thank you, Sarah, for providing that link. So what are folks doing in Kansas communities? Trying new things out or examples that we want to lift up to support family and household?
Jenny, is it I don't, this might be silly. How many schools across the state are providing support for these families? I mean, I know every school in Hayes has a food pantry. And I'm from Hayes, so I'm using that as an example a lot, so I apologize. But I don't know, is that common?
I think that's a great question. I want to know more. And so that's something we can look into. We are definitely, I think as we heard earlier, that quote about working with the school districts. And I think that maybe we can do a little bit more digging, but if you too could do some digging in your communities I think it's a great question, Sarah.
Jenny,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, this is Lisa. I'm superintendent for USD 270 Plainville, and we have the Backpack for Kids program that we do on the weekends. And then we work with our local food bank, and some of our organizations do drives and things like that. So we're trying to be connected with that as well.
Fantastic. Well, I will do some digging too. I think that's a wonderful question. Like how many is it a common thing? How are they adapting it to meet the community needs? I bet there's some bright spots and maybe there's someone I can reach out to who has like a wider view. But yeah, Lisa, thank you for that example.
This is Kelly France Langford, and I believe our local Head Start and Early Start community action, Head Start and Early Head Start, does an amazing job of support programs for parents. So things like they have a mom, I believe it's called mom.net for parents that are experiencing some depression to help work through. They have a dad's group. They have they provide parenting classes. In addition, the director there wrote for a grant to help their teachers access college level credit as they learn to become childcare educators. And they just have done, there are just so many bright spots. I can't even say them all, but they would be a great program to look into in Shawnee County.
Thank you so much. Wow, that is a great list. Okay, fantastic.
Jenny, this is Amy Gottschammer with Googles of Learning, and it just makes me think the protective factors is something that I often feel in a lot of ways is just sort of bred into your childcare, either homes or center-based programs, and that a lot of what we do with our families is what is part of the protective factors, right? You're trying to teach those social emotional skills to children, right? You're trying to maybe offer those social events so that the families get to know each other, so they're building those social connections. Maybe you have a school-wide directory so that they can meet each other and have play dates and things like that, and you try to be a resource to them if they have a crisis, so that you can be there for them when they have those concrete needs, or those those needs in times of crisis, right, where you can point them in a direction to a food pantry or a women's shelter or something like that, substance abuse program or things like that. So sometimes I think these things might be more difficult for you to pinpoint as a bright spot, but they are happening in communities across the state, I would imagine. Maybe not every program offers social events for their families or whatever, but I think a lot of them probably are kind of baked into a lot of programs.
Yes. That's a great point, Amy. I will do some more thinking about how to pull out examples or gather examples that folks who maybe could use a little bit more assistance, pointing them in the direction of where can they learn to build out those aspects of their programs if they need more information or help. I'll give
That's
that
what
some
I was
thought.
thinking, was that you could kind of state, hey, these are the protective factors. If you wanted to, maybe in some way, this is something somebody else could focus on, but, kind of along the lines of saying, you're a breastfeeding facility, right? And you get a little cling that goes on your window, something that Brenda sends you, right? If there was a program out there that taught everybody how to be supportive of the protective factors in your program, and then everybody's doing it and you get a little window cling and everybody's been trained, and these are the things that you can do to also be supportive in your program or your home or your center of these 5 protective factors, that all of these places are doing it.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll definitely make sure we're connecting to existing pathways to improving quality, for instance, right? We have our quality indicators for early care, and making sure that when we provide these examples, we're also connecting them to, well, what are the existing pathways in our system on how people can, resources they can tap to follow those pathways. And so for sure, making sure to acknowledge the existing resources. Bronwyn?
Good morning, Jenny. Thank you for your for the overview of the well-being dashboard, the website. This is really exciting to hear. In addition to all of the great resources you've heard about, another one you will be surprised for me to say is your K-State Research and Extension agent in the field, or the district offices, who are generally well connected with what's happening in the community, particularly around health and well-being, as that is a nationwide initiative for K-State or for research and extension. So just partner with those extension specialists and agents, and I think they'll also be able to give you some additional bright spots.
Excellent. Extension is near and dear to me. Definitely will reach out directly. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much. Lindsay, I am doing a terrible job keeping an eye on time, so you keep me, rein me in if I'm going over too much. Financial indicators is another domain that we have, or financial is another domain. And the indicators therein are employment, cost of living, financial security. And we're still, again, building this one out a little bit to try to merge the data to help measure these indicators. But we're hopeful that this will be a really important and useful domain for communities. So example bright spots here. I mean, we have our friends from Commerce. I think there'll be a lot of, I might reach out on the side to dig a little deeper into some examples, things that you're seeing and hearing at the local level. But apprenticeships, job training programs, saving programs, those are just a couple of things that came to mind to help inspire recollection of what might be going on in your community. So yeah, I'll pause and give some time and space for the financial domain. Thank you, Tricia, for sharing your information. I will reach out. Again, this might be another one, to Amy's point, that is tied in through a lot of other initiatives and programs, but pulling out those concrete examples that can get people excited and also show off a little bit about what's going on in Kansas is one of our goals. All right, and Sarah shared about the IDA program and special savings accounts for secondary education. Perfect.
Bank of America has a program, and I believe that it's I don't know if it's statewide or nationwide or whatnot, where they provide free financial literacy classes, and focused heavily on people who live or come from communities of poverty, where they try to help people understand the importance of financial literacy, financial security, savings, et cetera. And so I think that's always a great opportunity when we see business connecting to, service delivery or whatnot. And so that's something that we've had several of our families participate in. It's pretty cool.
Thank you, Cornelia. Right, how are we doing? Is there another slide? I got wrapped up in the examples. Okay, yes, I think that's it then. So just keep those bright spots and examples of concrete local examples of things that are happening. And it doesn't have to be perfect too. It could be an idea in process, right? Because I think just as we learned from our friends earlier in the earlier presentation, sometimes sharing the process and the struggles is so seeing a bright spot that's still in process that maybe others could reach out and learn more about. The lessons learned can also be a part of what we include. So I'm going to create a link where I'm hoping that maybe on a regular basis, as ideas come, you all could share. But of course, you can also just reach out the good old-fashioned way. I think Lindsay can share my information. And then also, Lindsay and I are very closely connected. And so if you reach out to her too, I'll be sure to get the information. And so again, just the overall call to a lot of these domains may feel very natural and make a lot of sense to you. We're hoping that's the case because they were born out of a lot of conversations of the last few years with Kansans, trying to understand how can we take a strength-based approach to defining child and family well-being, and then use that information and data to continue on ongoing pathways to really excelling across Kansas and learning from each other too, and having a place to really share the bright spots as they come along. So excited to bring back some visual things that will help this really resonate even on a deeper level and inspire new ideas in the coming months. So looking forward to that opportunity. And thanks again for the time and your work.
Sharing and everybody else for contributing and identifying some of the bright spots or things. Next, we will have updates from our work groups. And so first, we will hear from a spokesperson from the Family Friendly Workplaces work group.
That would be me. This is Brenda Bandy with the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, and I lead this group along with Dana Book with the Kansas Children's Service League. So our update is really brief, just to let you all know that we are meeting between meetings, and we are considering what the components of an employer designation, a family-friendly designation, what do we think are the key components? We're also researching other states that have created this. There's also some national organizations that have created similar designations. And we are meeting in early January with the folks that developed a North Carolina designation called the Family Forward designation to hear about their rationale and how they went about approaching this work. So that's kind of the behind the scenes work on this as well. So yeah, we just keep doing the work. We have a mighty group that is very invested in this, and we're getting a lot of input from different sectors. So thank you.
From exit interviews.
Good morning. This is Natalie McLean with our exit interview work group. At our November meeting, we focused on reviewing the draft exit interview and brainstorming ways to improve response rates. We've explored opportunities to leverage data from the workforce survey to refine the tool further. And then moving forward, we plan to involve research and evaluation experts and discuss how this effort might fit into CAPE.
Person for the mental health supports work group.
Good morning. This is Hillary Kane with Capata, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the Mental Health Support Work Group. I'm going to read from my notes a little bit here because we had a lot going on when we met last time. So the first thing I want to share is that we had Stephanie Parks, the Associate Director at Casito, share information on the well-being data from the statewide workforce study. And that study engaged almost 6,000 participants, including 35 focus groups. The overall kind of big picture findings that were shared with us were that compensation and benefits were a huge factor in the early childhood workforce, which was obviously not a surprise, as well as well-being and elevating the profession. So we had some really good conversation around that. We also talked about what the top reasons for leaving included, and Stephanie was able to provide us with those top 5 reasons. And then we also had some discussion around those that reported feeling unsafe at work and the reasons why. And so that was really good conversation to hear what was happening there as well, just to help to educate us and kind of figure out steps for moving forward. When participants were asked what would encourage them to rejoin the workforce, the answers outside of better compensation and benefits also included a better work-life balance. So that was kind of where our conversation was leading, was thinking around that better work and life balance. They did share on a positive note that the most enjoyable part of the work was the children and work relationships, which I think that many of us can obviously relate to in this work. So Stephanie's going to be bringing some more information to us. She's working on policy briefs from this study, including one that is on well-being. In addition to that information that we talked through and shared, we've also invited some outside individuals, including Jessica Mustafa from Wild Hope, to join our group, and she'll be starting in January. So today our focus is going to be on kind of what our next steps going to be and what is our path forward for the new year. So that's all I have for today.
Hi, Cornelia. This is Amy Gottchammer. I'm representing for Targeted Journey Recruitment. We are still trying to connect with several agencies to learn more about recruitment opportunities in Kansas. We're still trying to connect with KSDE, Career and Technical Education, to have somebody speak to us about programs offered for recruiting high school students. And it sounds like Stephanie has already been asked to speak to one of our work groups, but we were going to ask her to also speak to us about the early childhood workforce study. And we wanted to find out from Casito to see if somebody can speak to us about the career navigators. And in addition to that, we continued our discussions last month after the meeting around promotion of DCF and collected some documents that all to some degree had been distributed to providers and families to support the use of DCF subsidies. And we just sort of further discussed how that benefits recruitment of new ECE providers. Then we discussed the need for some stories maybe to illustrate some of the barriers to workforce recruitment. And to that end, one of our members decided to reach out to some of our All In for Kansas Kids colleagues and requested copies of the ECE Task Force preliminary and final reports for us. So we've since received those reports and drew out the sections related specifically to the workforce for our discussion today after our panel meeting. So we'll be focusing on that. But one of our biggest focuses today, well, one of our aims is really just to focus. And we thought to do that is to start with strategic plan to kind of align with that, just to give us a jumping off point. You know, we've been talking since we started our work group this summer. We've explored a lot of different areas, had a number of different discussions, and we feel like we're at the point now we really need to start focusing and coming up with a goals and kind of something to see that what if we can achieve something before the end of the year and see what that might be. So we're trying to just streamline our efforts here at this point. So that's what we'll be discussing some more of today. And I saw somebody put in a note here. Perhaps that was for us. Don't forget to use the RAWS program for workforce recruitment. Thank you, Tricia. We will take a look at that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amy. And System Progress Communications.
Hi, this is Kelly France Langford, and I am reporting out for the Systems Progress Communications Group. We have decided, we met earlier this week for a little while, and we're also meeting today as well. And we are really honing in on one of our goals around conducting an inventory of organizations and work groups within the Kansas Early Childhood Governance Structure. It was great because I heard several of those pieces happening today as well. And so I think we are in alignment with a lot of other people on this call. So we're going to be working on compiling those lists across the state and hopefully down to the local level as well. And then working on, yes.
I'm sorry, we are having an echo, so we're not able to hear you. By chance, are you, do you have audio on multiple devices, or do you have a cell phone near you or anything like that?
I don't know what's going on. Does someone else from my group want to report out?
I can jump in. This is Heather Schoberger. So Kelly was mentioning that our group met earlier this week and we're meeting again today. We had a long list of potential goal areas and priorities, and we've decided to focus in on looking at the existing groups and forums for meeting around early childhood issues and the early childhood system in Kansas, and starting with an inventory of what those groups are, and hopefully moving towards some potential recommendations or strategies for increasing cross communication or knowledge across each of those groups. So we're just at the initial stage of that. And we'll look forward to sharing more about it after we get that underway in the new year.
Kelly, sorry to disrupt you as you were busy going, and I apologize, but we couldn't really understand. And Heather, thank you for hopping in. So thank you everyone for the updates. Always good to hear about all of the new work that's happening or whatnot, or that we're moving along and we're either discovering and focusing in on what our target should be or our goal should be for our groups, and then working to kind of make things happen. So anybody have any bright spots that you'd like to share regarding things happening in your organization, in your community, or things that we need to know on a statewide basis? Natalie.
I have a couple things to share from KSDE. Let's see, we have 25 Kansas Parents as Teachers programs that recently received a blue ribbon endorsement following an intensive accreditation process. This means that 40 out of our 62 Parents as Teachers programs have now received the blue ribbon designation. And this represents the highest possible level of quality and service delivery for those parents as teachers programs. So congratulations to them. I also wanted to share with everyone that the Kansas State Department of Education is accepting applications for the Kansas Preschool Pilot Grant for the 25-26 school year. And I will put a link in the chat for information on how to find that, but that's on our KSDE preschool programming webpage if you'd like more information on that.
Good. There's your hand up?
Yes, thanks. Yes. Brenda Bandy with the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition again. I have exciting news to share for the entire state. Kansas is one of the few states that received funding from the Pritzker's Children's Initiative to support a paid family and medical leave education campaign over the next year and a half. So there is officially a coalition now that is working on paid leave, and we invite you to join that. And you can, I'll put the email in the chat and the website in the chat so that Lindsay can put it into the notes. But the Paid Leave for All Kansans is the name of the campaign. And if you're interested in staying informed or participating, please let me know.
To those who wrote the grant, and definitely a much needed campaign. So that's going to be amazing. Any other bright spots? Remember that there will be a post-meeting survey that Lindsay will send out and give you an opportunity to provide feedback from today's meeting. The next early childhood recommendations panel meeting is going to be on January 17th. And the next Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund meeting is going to be on February 7th. And that's going to be live streamed on the Kansas Children's Cabinet's YouTube page. We are going to take about a 10-minute break for everyone to kind of stretch, get some coffee, etc. And then if you are going to meet with your work groups, then Lindsay will have the breakout rooms open for you to be able to meet. So it is 10:55. We'll come back at 11:05 if you are going to be meeting in your work group. If you're not meeting in your work group, and you are done for the day or soon to be done for the day, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday, that you have some opportunities to take time off and relax, take care of you, laugh, and enjoy your loved ones. So have a wonderful holiday, everyone. Take care, and we will see you in 2025.